Hello, so today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to actually create code for the Hotline web client for Roblox. I think I said I'd make this in my showcase video for it. So we're going to be focusing on the server code. All the client code is fixed and I'm actually not releasing it. I'm just going to be releasing a template for the server code. So you just have to program the server and the client will be able to actually construct the website using the information that the server sends it. So this is an overview of the server template. So there's two functions. There's server start and listen. Server start instantiates all the data that the server stores, which can then be changed, but it just runs once when the server opens up. And listen is an endless loop, and this is how the server updates its values based on inputs sent to it by the client. I'll explain all of that later. So the first step before you do anything else is you want to actually select the name for your website. So to do this, you open up function server start. And as you can see, swagg.en is the name of the server. All the array is named swagg.en. And then my two inputs are swagg.en input 1 and swagg.en input 2. So to change the name of the site, you simply click replace. You find swagg.en because that will invariably be what the name is on the template, and you replace it with your site name. So my site name is going to be image board, spelled MGBORED. So and then you just click replace all, and it will replace everything, including the other words that are compounded with it. So it will change our input variables as well. So now typing imgbored into the URL bar of a client will actually load the site because that's how the array find structure works. So now next I'm going to demonstrate how to actually render a text box on the screen of the client when the site is loaded. Okay, so next I'm going to be actually rendering a text box on the screen of the client when the site is loaded. So you have a number of objects that can be rendered on the screen, including 10 text boxes, 10 image boxes, 2 text input boxes for user input, and 2 submit buttons that can wire variables and send them back to the server. So text box is probably the most simple thing you can display on the screen. So invariably, with every single object that can be rendered, the first 4 array numbers for that object are x position, y position, x size, y size. The monitor is an 800 by 600 grid. 800 is the y-axis and 600 is the x-axis. 0, 0 is the top left corner. The URL bar is it goes down to y50, so it's 50 wide. So you have to start at y equals 50 for everything because overlapping the URL bar is it won't break the script, but it's basically just against design protocol. So the x position, I'll start at 0. I'm going to make a title bar. The y position 50, so it doesn't overlap the URL bar. The x size shall be 800. The y size shall be 50, so it's approximately the same with the URL bar. So as far as the title, I'm going to name it after the site. Keep making that mistake. And the color, so it's going to be black background, white text. I'm not going to mess with that. It takes a little bit of effort. Basically, you want to do 255. Wait, no. You want to do the color you want. You find the color 3 for it, and then you divide each of those numbers by 255 and put that value into each slot to create the color you want. Because it's a 0 through 1 value domain. Okay, so the next one is text size. It has to be put in as actually a string size and then the number you want. Multi-line is a boolean. That's whether or not the text display can go on multiple lines. In the actual text, you want a backslash and then n if you want to go to a new line. But because this is a title bar, that's pretty extraneous. And then this is for left-right align, and this is for up-down align. So those are all the values. I put in these, so it should render on the client. So next I'm actually going to demonstrate what a client rendering of this looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to try rendering the text box on the screen to demonstrate what the code actually creates. So I have the wrong default URL, so I have to actually type in the URL using this QWERTY keyboard. And go. So there you go, right there. It looks like it's a copy-paste of the URL bar, but actually it is the text box that I rendered on the screen, complete with the text. So that's just an example of what you can do with this. So for the rest of the tutorial, I'm going to be building a very basic image board type website. I'm not going to make you guys watch all of the design. I'm just going to show how to render one of each type, and the rest of it I'll kind of do behind the scenes, and then I'll show the finished product. So it'll give anyone interested the ability to create this site, but I mean, it won't be quite so tedious to watch. Okay, so now it's time to actually start designing the website that I'll be creating. So that title bar doesn't really fit into the final design. So the design is based, there are going to be 5 pairs of image boxes and text displays. There will be a submit button and then 2 text inputs. In one text input you input the text, and in the other input you input the URL of the image. So it's kind of loosely modeled after 4chan. It's obviously not as majestic, but that is what I'm going for. So I will just show quickly putting in the code how to create one image next to one text box, and then I'll just make all of them not on screen. So okay, so I've got image. It's exactly the same as dimensioning a text box. So I want it to be, first of all, I want it to be 125 by 100. I want it to start at 50. Or no, I want it to start at 0x and 50y. So that is the dimensions that I want for the image. And then the dimensions that I want for the first text box, I'm just going to use the same one that I used before. I've reset the values. I want it to go the rest. So I want it to be 50, or actually on x, I want it to be 125. On y, I want it to be 50. For x size, I want it to be 675. And for y, I want it to be 100, so it matches the image box. So next I'll show you what this actually looks like rendered, and then I will show what all of them actually look like rendered. Okay, so now this is how the site looks now that I have created all of the image boxes as well as the text boxes, and actually align the text to the right so it will appear a little bit more, I guess, realistic looking. Something to keep in mind, remember capitalization for text alignment, because it's kind of a pointless reason for your code not to work, but if you just type left with a lowercase l, that won't work. Just something I encountered. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So next up will be the tutorial of how to create the button and the data that you actually submit to the server itself. Okay, so next I'm actually going to be programming the buttons to send data back to the server when you press them. So actually I'm only using one button. So it's like the submit button. So each button has 2 grabs and 2 sends. A grab is where it takes data from, and a send is the server variable that it sends the data back to. It can send to any global variable, but the conventions is that you have to send it back to the server. The server should only be written to send code that causes the client to send code back to itself. So there's 2 standard server inputs up at the top, imageboard INP1 and imageboard INP2. So I'm going to put the grab1 sends to grab2, or grab1 sends to send1, and grab2 sends to send2. So grab1 is going to be ing, or actually no, it's going to be txt inp1, and send1 is going to be imgbored inp1, and the same thing with grab2 and send2. So it will automatically do this. When you press the submit button now, it will automatically update those global variables, imageboard INP1 and imageboard INP2, to the text value of the input box. It will also, all buttons do this, automatically refresh the page, consequently updating whatever the server has and refreshing the input box. So this will prevent spam, as it's good practice to put in functions that prevent the default values of the input boxes from triggering the if statement that actually updates the server to prevent basically just spamming the submit button. So this is all you have to do to wire up the sends. So actually just putting the controls on the screen is pretty trivial. So next I'm just going to do that, and then I will actually show you guys the working site. There's only one more piece of code that needs to go into it for it to work, and that is the listen code. So the listen code is actually going to be the only code that actually has to be programmed and is not just a value entered into array. But it's pretty simple, and it gives the server a lot more power than it would if the server was just all array based, because it allows the server to actually handle data in any way that the server any way that the person creating the server wants it to. So I will be back in a moment. So this is the last part of the tutorial before I actually have the finished website. So all that remains is to just create the code that will make the server be able to update itself based on input from the client. So I have that code right here in the function called listen. So the function is an if statement and a wait statement. So it says wait 1,000th of a second, and it says while 1 equals 1. So it goes on forever, and at every 1,000th of a second, it decides if the inputs are not equal to variables in the array, then it updates the variables in the array to the input. So that's what this basic code does. So I'm just going to read it out case by case, so to see if I can explain it. The audio probably isn't going to be synced with the visuals very well because I don't have a very good recording software, and Fraps refuses to record things that aren't video games for a reason that I have absolutely no idea. So yeah, I'll just go through it word by word basically. So if statement starts if g underscore imageboard inp1 is not equal to g underscore imageboard 49. So basically it's saying if the input is not equal to the 49th entry on the array, which is actually the text value of text box 1, and it's not equal to ... which is the default value, so it prevents you from just submitting the default value, so it's a spam protection. And then another and imageboard input 2 is not equal to g.imageboard 135, so that's actually the value of the URL of the image, and the URL is also the default value on the screen that is sent. And so if it's not equal to URL, it's not equal to 135, and it's not equal to ... which is it's the starting default value of the input variable, so this just prevents problems from happening there as well. So that is what you want the if statement to look like. You want it to if the value is not equal to the value that you want to be updated by the input variable, then that's what triggers it. You can have it so they're separate if statements. I just have them in the same if statement because I only want you to be able to execute the update if both fields are true. So you can't post only an image or only text. Okay, so that's the if statement. So moving on, here is the update code. This is what updates the server. So the way it works is, so think of it, it's scrolling up the screen, and then so the top value on the screen goes off into nothingness, and then all the other values move up 1, and then the bottom values take the lowest spot. So the way this works is it's actually two. Highlighting is probably useless because it's probably not in sync with the video, but okay, so the first, I want to say 5 lines. It's 5 is equal to 16, 16 is equal to 17, 17 is equal to 38, 38 is equal to 49, and 49 is equal to the input. So it just scrolls everything up in the actual values in the server. So when the client loads the server's data, it's going to load the scrolled up version. So those are the text values, and then the second one, last 5 lines, are the URLs. So that is how to write the code. So it's just if you're trying to write your own code, just consult this video and look at the values you're trying to update, and it should be fairly easy to do. One problem that is currently in the design is if you feed bad data to the client in slots where it doesn't go, for example, feeding letters into the URL, it will break the client loads function, and the client will no longer be able to load the server. I'm going to be putting more code into the Hotline client to make it more robust, but right now you can corrupt the server data to a point where the client can no longer read it by putting text into the URL bar. So images are not necessarily the most developed feature right now, but the bright side is that it should not be a terribly hard fix. I should be able to actually fix that, and yeah, in the fairly soon update, it's probably going to be patched. So that is I guess that concludes the design segment. I'm just going to demonstrate the working website next. So I'm going to create a place where I'll put in any web server that anyone else designs and is interested in featuring in the place. So I'm not going to be releasing the client as a free model, but I'm going to be releasing the server template. So if you want to create a website for the Hotline API, create the free model and contact me either through my Reddit account, my Roblox account, or YouTube account, and link me to the free model, and I'll add it to my place, and it will become part of the Hotline internet system or something. And if the project gets enough attention, I will release the client as well. I mean, it's not that complicated. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.